My dear friends, let me ask you a simple question. Have you ever seen a baby trying to walk for the first time? It stumbles, it falls, it wobbles. Sometimes it falls flat on its face. But do you know what it doesn't do? It doesn't give up. Now imagine if that baby thought, "This walking thing isn't for me. I tried 3 times. I fell 3 times. I'm clearly not good at it." We would have a world full of crawling adults. The truth is, you can't fail if you never quit. Let me share a story. There was once a man who spent years digging for diamonds in a mine. After a long time and no success, he gave up and sold his land to another man. The new owner dug just 3 feet further and struck diamonds. Many of us give up 3 feet before gold or 3 steps before success, not because we lack talent, but because we lack patience and perseverance. Look, success isn't always about being the smartest or the most talented. Sometimes it's just about being the one who refuses to give up. Life will test you. It will delay you. It will stretch you. But never let it defeat you. Your dreams are valid, but they require your commitment, not your convenience. Every time you fall, stand up, dust yourself off, and keep walking. Because each time you get up, you're closer than you were before. If the night is dark, it simply means the morning is near. If the road is steep, it means the view will be worth it. Don't stop. Success, in its most misunderstood form, is often believed to be about perfection, about getting everything right on the first attempt, moving without error, or mastering a skill without ever stumbling. But life doesn't work like that. If it did, none of us would ever learn, because the greatest teacher we will ever have is our own experience. And experience is born not from perfection, but from persistence. Think of a potter molding clay on a wheel. He doesn't get it right on the first spin. The clay collapses, folds awkwardly, or becomes uneven. But does he throw it away? No. He wets his hands again, centers the clay once more, and starts shaping it patiently. Over time, with each failed attempt, the clay begins to resemble the pot he envisions. That's what persistence does. It gives shape to our dreams. In the same way, our lives are molded by the pressure we face, the adjustments we make, and the resilience we show. Perfection is not a requirement for progress. The world does not need perfect people. It needs committed people. People who show up again and again, even when things go wrong, even when no one notices their effort, and even when there's no visible reward in sight. Some of the greatest musicians didn't have perfect pitch when they started. Some of the world's best athletes lost more games than they won at the beginning. Writers had books rejected. Artists were told their vision didn't make sense. And innovators were laughed at. But they continued. They understood something vital. Failure is part of the price we pay for growth, not a fine we're charged for being unworthy. Persistence is a silent warrior. It doesn't make noise, but it leaves a mark. It's not about ignoring failure, but about embracing it, learning from it, and still daring to try again. when you keep moving, despite setbacks, you start to realize that every attempt, whether successful or not, contributes to your progress. Every mistake sharpens you. Every challenge strengthens you. Every fall humbles you. There's a quiet power in showing up daily, regardless of how you feel. A baby learning to walk is one of the purest demonstrations of human determination. There's no strategy, no book, no YouTube tutorial, just instinct, curiosity, and the undying willingness to try. The baby doesn't analyze how many times it has fallen, nor does it keep a score of failed attempts. It simply rises again. That rise, that attempt to balance again, is what growth truly looks like. And what's truly beautiful is this: not once does the baby label itself a failure. Now imagine if we approached our own challenges with the same innocence and courage. If we looked at our setbacks not as the end, but simply as a stage of learning. The baby never gives up on walking. Not because someone told it to keep trying, but because something inside says, "This is what I'm meant to do." And perhaps deep down, we know what we're meant to do too. But unlike the baby, we let our minds interfere. We start saying, "What if I'm not good enough? What will people say if I try and fail again? Maybe I'm just not cut out for this." These thoughts are not facts. They are fears in disguise. And the greatest tragedy is not that we fall, it's that we convince ourselves we shouldn't try again. But consider this: if a child gave up after the third fall, we'd never see them run, play, or dance. And if you give up now, the world might never see the magic you carry within you. Think about the books left unwritten, the ideas left unspoken, the journeys never taken, simply because someone thought failing once was a sign to stop forever. Falling is not the opposite of progress, it is a part of it. Just like the baby's first steps are wobbly, your first business might not succeed. Your first speech might be awkward. Your first song may go unnoticed. But that doesn't mean you weren't born to build, to speak, or to sing. It simply means you're walking your first few steps. And even when you fall, and you will, there is wisdom in the fall. You learn what balance feels like. You learn where your strength lies. You discover which direction feels right. And most importantly, you discover that you're stronger than your stumbles. So don't envy the ones who are running. They fell too, many times. The only difference is they kept getting up. Just like the baby. Just like you can, keep walking, even if your legs. There's an old story often told in mining communities of a man who had a dream to find diamonds. He invested all his savings, bought land, and began to dig. He toiled for months, day after day, inch by inch, going deeper into the earth. But the diamonds never appeared. Eventually, exhausted and defeated, he gave up. He sold the land to another man, thinking it was worthless. The new owner hired an expert who studied the land and instructed him to dig just 3 feet further from where the previous man had stopped. And there, just 3 feet deeper, lay one of the richest diamond veins ever discovered. Most people don't fail because they lack potential. They fail because they stop digging too soon. It's easy to stay motivated in the beginning. When your dreams are fresh and your energy is high, everything feels possible. But as time passes and success doesn't arrive at your pace, you begin to doubt. The excitement fades and questions start creeping in. Is this really worth it? Am I even capable? Maybe this is a sign to stop. And so, just like the miner, you pack up your tools and walk away, never realizing how close you actually were. We've all had moments where we gave up on something, not because it was impossible, but because it was invisible, because the reward hadn't shown itself yet. But unseen progress is still progress. Just because you can't see the breakthrough doesn't mean it's not about to happen. Sometimes the most important work is being done in silence, under the surface, out of sight. Think of how a seed grows underground. For days, even weeks, nothing seems to happen. But inside the soil, there's movement, there's transformation. The roots are forming, the foundation is being laid. And when the time is right, the seed bursts forth from the earth, not because it suddenly decided to grow, but because it never stopped trying. Your efforts may not show immediate results. People might not recognize your struggle. You might not feel like you're making a difference. But don't stop because you never know. Maybe you're just 3 feet from your own version of diamonds. To be the moment you feel like quitting is often the very moment just before the miracle. The darkness before the dawn is always the deepest. The silence before the applause is always the longest. The pain before the breakthrough is always the hardest. But if you can just hold on, dig a little deeper, and push a little further, you'll find that what you were searching for was already within reach. Success often belongs not to the most skilled, but to the most stubborn. The ones who keep digging, even when everyone is down. We often think of failure as the end, a closed door a sign that we weren't meant for the path we were on. But what if failure isn't the end at all? What if just the universe whispering, not like this? Try again, but differently. Failure is not final, it is feedback. And feedback, though sometimes difficult to hear, is essential for our growth. If we look back on our lives we'll see that some of the most important lessons didn't come from victories. They came from mistakes, from moments of pain, from setbacks that forced us to pause and reflect. It's in failure that we often discover what truly matters to us. Think about a musician who hits the wrong note during a performance. In that moment, the error stings, but it teaches them where they went wrong. They go back, practice harder, and return stronger. Without that failure, they might have continued with a flaw they never noticed. The mistake then becomes a gift, a sharp teacher cloaked in discomfort. In the same way, our failures hold up a mirror. They reveal where we need to improve, what we need to change, and sometimes, most powerfully, who we are becoming. Because when everything is going well, we rarely question ourselves. But when we fall, when we face disappointment, we are forced to look deeper. That's when transformation begins. Imagine someone starting a business, pouring in time, effort, and money. It fails. Customers don't come. Debts pile up. It feels like everything's gone wrong. But what that experience teaches them about planning, about people, about perseverance, becomes the foundation for the second business. And that second attempt, shaped by the wisdom of the first, often becomes the breakthrough. It's important to understand that failure is not a judgment of your worth. It is merely a redirection of your path. Just like a GPS rerouting you when you miss a turn, life uses failure to guide you to something better, something more aligned with your purpose. But only if you're willing to listen, only if you're willing to see failure not as humiliation, but as education. We live in a world where people hide their failures and only display their highlight reels. But behind every success story, there is a trail of rejections, late nights, tears, and quiet prayers. What we call overnight success is usually years of private struggle. What looks like strength is often the result of many small defeats that never made it to the public eye. So, when you fail, and you will, remember this: it's not the end of the road. It's just a bend. In a world that celebrates talent and praises giftedness, it's easy to believe that success belongs only to the chosen few, the naturally intelligent, the exceptionally skilled, the born geniuses. We look at athletes who seem to defy gravity, entrepreneurs who seem to turn everything they touch into gold, artists who create beauty with a single stroke. And we tell ourselves, they were born to do that. I'm just not like them. But that belief is not only misleading, it's dangerous. Because it convinces us to stop before we even begin. What we fail to see behind those moments of brilliance is the silent, relentless repetition, the long hours, the forgotten failures, the quiet nights where no one claps, no one cheers, and yet they continue. Consistency, not talent, is what shapes mastery. Imagine a man who decides to plant a tree. He waters it daily. The first day, nothing. The second day, still nothing. A week passes, a month, and still no sign of growth. But the man keeps watering. Why? Because he trusts the process. He understands that the seed is working, even if it's not yet visible. Then one day, a tiny shoot breaks through the soil. Not because of one extraordinary act, but because of 1,000 simple ones, repeated faithfully. That's how greatness is built. Not in bursts, but in rhythm. Not through rare sparks, but through steady flame. You don't need to be a genius to succeed. You need to be committed. You don't need to be extraordinary. You need to be consistent. The world doesn't reward the one who shines briefly. It rewards the one who keeps showing up. There's something powerful about a person who returns to their path day after day. Even when the results are invisible, even when the motivation is low, even when no one is watching. It's easy to be enthusiastic in the beginning, when the goal is new and the vision is fresh, but it's in the middle, where the work feels mundane, where progress feels slow, that most people quit. That's where discipline must take over when motivation fades. And this is where many miss the point. Talent may give you a head start, but it cannot carry you to the finish line. Because the race is long and the road will test you. Only those who are consistent, who keep walking even when their legs are tired, will see the reward. Even water, when it drips over time, can carve through stone, not because of its force, but because of its persistence. So if you're not the best, don't worry. If you're not the fastest, that's okay. If you failed more times than you can count, you're still in the game. As long as you're still showing up, your job is not to be perfect. In life, we often begin our journey toward a goal with passion, energy, and dreams that sparkle in our eyes. At the beginning, everything feels exciting. We're motivated, we're hopeful, we're even impatient to succeed. But then comes the test, a subtle, quiet test that not many talk about. It's the moment when the journey no longer feels exciting, when the work becomes boring, when results don't show, when you're tired and no one notices your effort. That's where the real question arises. Are you committed or were you only convenient? There's a huge difference between the two. Convenience is temporary. It's fueled by mood, by hype, by external energy. It's easy to act when everything feels right, when the sun is shining, when people support you, when you're inspired. But what about the days when nothing goes your way? When you're stressed, lonely, demotivated, or surrounded by silence? That's when commitment reveals itself. Think of a farmer. He doesn't plant seeds only when the weather is pleasant. He doesn't say, I'll water the crops only if I feel like it today. No. He shows up every day, regardless of the conditions, because he knows without consistency, there will be no harvest. His commitment isn't based on comfort. It's based on responsibility. He doesn't farm for applause. He farms for the outcome. Similarly, when we commit to a dream, a goal, or a vision, we must recognize that emotions will fluctuate. We'll have days when we feel like champions, and days when we feel like giving up. But true commitment doesn't sway with feelings. It stands firm through the storms. It's the voice that says, I will still do the work, even when no one is watching. Even when it's hard, even when it hurts, convenience whispers. I'll do it when it's easy. Commitment declares, I'll do it even when it's not. And this applies to everything, from careers to relationships, from health to self-growth. The gym goer who shows up only when it's fun won't see long-term results. The student who studies only when the mood strikes won't excel. The business owner who only works when inspired won't survive setbacks. But the one who commits, regardless of how they feel, begins to build something far more powerful than progress. They build discipline, and discipline is stronger than emotion. The truth is, any dream worth chasing will demand your endurance. It will challenge your comfort. It will ask you to show up on the days you'd rather sleep in. It will test your sincerity. And each time you choose to act out of commitment rather than convenience, you take one step closer to becoming the person your dream needs you to be. So when the path gets rough, don't ask yourself, is this still exciting? Ask yourself, am I still committed? There's a moment in every journey where things begin to slow down, not because you've lost your drive, hours to be in but because lies a way of pausing the things we want. Even when we're doing everything right, you wake up, you put in the work, you show up, and yet the results don't come. Progress feels invisible. You start wondering, why hasn't it happened yet? What am I doing wrong? But here's a truth not everyone wants to hear. Delay is not denial. 20 hours to be in just because it's taking time doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Just because the reward hasn't arrived doesn't mean it's not on the way. We live in a culture obsessed with speed. We want everything now. Quick success, instant recognition, rapid growth. But life isn't Amazon Prime. Dreams don't come with overnight delivery. The most meaningful things in life, character, wisdom, resilience, maturity, take time. And so do the dreams that are truly worth living for. Let me share a simple image. Picture a bamboo tree. When you plant its seed, you water it every day, nourish the soil, protect it from harsh conditions. And yet, for years, nothing happens. For 5 long years, there's no visible sign of growth. Most people would give up, assuming the seed was bad or the soil unfit. But those who understand how bamboo works, they keep watering, quietly, faithfully, patiently. Then, in the 5th year, something extraordinary happens. The bamboo shoots up 80 feet in just 6 weeks. Now here's the question, did the bamboo grow in 6 weeks or in 5 years? The truth is, it was growing the whole time, underground, quietly building roots, laying the foundation for something massive, something tall, something that could withstand storms. Had it grown earlier without roots, it would have collapsed under its own weight. Sometimes, you are that bamboo tree. You feel like nothing's moving, nothing's changing. But inside, in places no one can see, you're growing, you're maturing, you're becoming stronger, wiser, deeper. And when the time is right, your moment will come. But for now, the roots are the priority. Delays don't mean you're forgotten. They don't mean you've been ignored. Sometimes in the very delay you're frustrated about is what's actually protecting you from arriving unprepared. Sometimes the not yet is a blessing in disguise. Life may be building your foundation, your patience, your strength your ability to handle what's coming, so that when the breakthrough happens, you don't just reach success, you're ready to hold it. There are people who got what they wanted too soon and lost it just as quickly. But those who waited who endured the silence, who didn't run from the slow season. They were the ones who lasted. They were the ones who became unshakable. So the next time life delays you, I don't see it as a punishment. See it as preparation. The wait is there's a truth many people overlook when they're walking through their own battles. Your journey is not just about you. Every time you keep going despite the hardship, every time you choose to rise after falling, every time you wipe your tears and still move forward, you are inspiring someone who is quietly watching you someone who is wondering if they should keep going too. The world doesn't just need your success. It needs your struggle. It needs your perseverance. Because in your silent strength, others find their courage. You may not know it, but someone looks up to you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. 2 hours to be because you're still trying, because you haven't quit. Your story may not be a bestseller, but to someone, it's the book that's keeping them alive. Every step you take in faith is showing someone else that it's possible to keep walking, even when the road feels impossible. Let me share something powerful. There once was a young man who grew up in a home filled with chaos, poverty, brokenness, and no clear direction in life. He had no mentors, no positive role models, and no sense of hope. One day, while walking in a park, he saw a woman jogging. She wasn't fast, she wasn't particularly athletic, but she had determination on her face. He noticed she kept pausing to catch her breath, yet she always continued. Every time she stopped, she looked tired, but every time she started again. The young man watched her from a bench for nearly an hour, and at the end of it, she jogged past him, smiling, and said, "Hard days are the ones that make you stronger." That small moment, a stranger pushing through her personal difficulty, changed something in him. He went home, and for the first time in his life, he believed he could change too. All because someone else didn't quit. And that's the quiet power of your example. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to be loud, flashy, or flawless. You just need to keep going. Whether you're a parent working 3 jobs, a student battling anxiety, an artist struggling with doubt, or a dreamer facing constant setbacks, someone is watching you. And your decision to not give up is giving them permission to believe in their own strength. We often think influence comes from being on a stage or having a following. But real influence comes from how you live when no one is applauding. From how you fight your own battles with quiet dignity. From how you continue walking even when you don't feel seen. Every time you get back up, you become a lighthouse for someone lost at sea. Your light. One of the most common lies people tell themselves is this: what's the point? All this effort and still no result. Maybe it's all for nothing. It's a silent belief that creeps in after weeks, months, or even years of giving your best without any applause, without any recognition, without any outcome you can hold in your hands. And slowly, This belief convinces you that your energy has been wasted. Your time, your effort, your sacrifices, all meaningless. But the truth is, your effort is never wasted. Even when you don't see it yet, it's working. Even when the doors don't open, something is moving. Even when the silence feels loud, something is shifting inside you. Let's consider a mountain climber. They train for months, sometimes years. Before even setting foot on the peak they want to conquer, they wake up early, run through exhaustion, lift more than their body wants to handle, and climb hills that are nowhere near the summit they dream of. Most of that training happens far away from any mountain, on quiet trails, in lonely gyms, under grey skies with no cameras watching. But every single workout is building something. Every single step is preparing the legs, the lungs, the mind And when they finally face the mountain, they don't just survive it. They rise above it. Not because they suddenly became strong at the top, but because they quietly built strength at the bottom. Your journey is no different. Every late night where you chose work over comfort. Every morning where you got up when it would have been easier to stay down. Every time you practiced, studied, prayed, journaled, trained, forgave, endured. None of it is wasted. You are sowing seeds even if the harvest hasn't come yet And the funny thing about seeds is, they always grow before they show Think about all the times you got through things you once thought would break you. That strength didn't come out of nowhere. It was forged in all those quiet hours when you kept going, kept believing, and kept choosing to try one more time. Progress isn't always visible on the outside. Sometimes it's hidden in the way you think differently. The way you no longer quit so quickly. The way you recover faster from disappointment. The way you carry your pain with wisdom. These internal victories don't get celebrated like external wins, but they're far more valuable. They're the kind of growth that builds a life that's unshakable. And here's something beautiful. Even when your effort doesn't lead to the result you expected, it still builds character. It still refines your heart. It still shapes you into someone wiser, more patient, more grounded. Sometimes your effort is not preparing you for a specific outcome. It's preparing you for a future version of yourself that you haven't yet met. So never regret the energy you poured into something that didn't bloom right away. Never think the hard work was for nothing. It wasn't. You may not see it yet, but you are being prepared, layer by layer, step by step. We often look at those who succeed and wonder what they have that we don't. We assume they were born with something special, a gift, a talent, a natural edge. But most of the time, the truth is far simpler and far more powerful. They just didn't stop. They weren't always the smartest in the room, or the most talented, or the ones with the perfect plan. They were simply the ones who got up one more time than they fell. Success, in its essence, is not a moment of glory. It's the result of 1,000 silent choices. to keep going, to keep trying, to keep believing. Behind every victory you see, there is an unseen battlefield filled with moments where that person almost gave up. The moments where they were overwhelmed with doubt. Moments where quitting would have made complete sense. But they didn't. They chose to try again. And that single decision to make one more attempt often becomes the defining moment that turns everything around. Let me share a story. There was once a man who had failed at almost everything in life. He lost jobs. He faced bankruptcy. He was rejected over and over again. At one point, he found himself living in his car, nearly out of hope. He was 45 years old and had every reason to believe that life had passed him by. But there was one thing he hadn't given up on: his dream of making people laugh. He kept writing jokes, kept working on his comedy, kept showing up for small performances, even when only a few people attended. Then, one day someone noticed. He got an opportunity. And everything changed. That man was Steve Harvey. And the world knows his name today, not because he never failed, but because he always tried again. The point is, your breakthrough is often hidden behind the next attempt. But most people never reach it because they walk away too soon. They don't realize how close they really were. They let one rejection stop them. They let one failure define them. They forget that success is not about never falling. It's about always rising. Winners are not people who never lost. They are people who refuse to let their losses become permanent. Trying one more time may not seem heroic. It's not glamorous. It's not the stuff of movies. But that small act, done in silence, in weariness, in the middle of doubt, has the power to change your entire story. Think about it. That extra phone call, that extra hour of study, that one more application, that one more workout, that one more audition, that one more morning of choosing not to quit. It could be the one that shifts everything, but you'll never know unless you try. So when you feel exhausted, when the weight of failure hangs heavy on your shoulders, and when the voices in your head say, "You've already tried so many times. Why bother again?" Answer back with this.